All right, guys, real quick tonight about securities comp. It was a discussion very similar to this up at a Midwest builder school when we still went and joined up in Michigan before we built ECBS. That really got me like off my butt and securities licensed. The first part of it was if you're only selling someone a term policy, that you were essentially doing a worse job than the whole life guy. Like you're worse than the whole life guy if you're just selling them term because if they live, which they're supposed to, there's literally nothing at the end of the term, right? So if you're not investment licensed or you're not giving them term and then connecting them with someone who's investment licensed, you're doing a very poor job. The other side of it was when I saw the comp breakdown. So the numbers here are from last year, right? So when we get the new ones for this we'll get the new ones in 2026 from the 2025 data. I'll update this presentation, but you're going to see why what you have with an investment license is such a big deal, right? And so we're going to go over like where do you even find the compensation? Like, have you guys wondered, hey, how do I even figure out how I get paid on the because it's not the same and it's a little trickier. You're leaving really half of the money or more at the kitchen table. And when we talk about investments, guys, especially once you have a 65 license, you're literally talking about a river of nickels. Think about this, right? And this isn't in this slide deck because I wasn't 65 licensed, and I'm the only one with 65 licensed right now, so it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense to teach it. But once you hit 16 million in AUM, so in assets under management in a managed account, that's going to pay you a little over 100 grand a year just to wake up, right? And so like that's the passive renewal income side of things from just a managed account perspective. Okay. So it's literally a river of nickels. You can sit down with someone and do a life insurance policy, get paid right now, but it's over. Minus earns and IBRs, right? But like really like that first big payment is over. But the investment side of things will pay you forever in theory, assuming that the person actually wants to hit that financial independence number. Okay. And so this is coming out of last year's Decade of Dominance report card from 2024. We paid over 1 billion in cash in comp in 2024. 2025 probably be closer to 1.2, maybe even 1.3. But of that 1.1, guys, look how much of it went to investment licensed people. The compensation is roughly 50%. Does it show it on there? It doesn't break it down. They must have just said it during the thing, but roughly half the comp goes to life, the other half goes to securities. So I kind of backed out the math, right? If half the comp at that time we only had about 24,000 securities reps, right? That means half of all comp is paid to less than 15% of reps inside the business. Without a securities license, you are like leaving so much money on the table. So the fact that you guys have it is amazing. And I can almost guarantee that coming in from 25 numbers, this number will likely go down a little bit because the comp is going to go up and this number has not changed a whole lot. The goal is to be at 50,000 by 2030. We're only at 25 and change, maybe 26, right? And so if we're paying more and we haven't moved the license numbers that much yet, well, there you go, right? And so where do we even find the comp schedule? Well, go to POL home, right? And then comp, and then under comp, product commissions. This applies to everything, all right? And so once you hit product commissions, you have the entire list. Have you guys seen this before? The list of, okay, so this is good, right? So, I mean, Gary, you're relatively new. You got licensed super fast, but this is where you find this stuff, okay? You can find the comp schedule for literally everything that's out there. It's crazy that there are one, two, three different like top level things for PLPP. It's like what? I won't go down that road, right? But PLO home commissions, and then if we're looking at investment stuff, can you guys see this little like blue like highlighter thing floating around? Okay. I wasn't sure if it was like just me. But yeah, but that's where that's at. And so once you click into the investment side for commissions, there's really only two places that you guys need to go right now. Like the advisors side is for 65 license, so you don't need that. And then qualified retirement plans is if you're working through like a 401k plan or something with a business, right? So that's where those would be. But really, the annuity comp is the same almost no matter what, and the mutual fund tab will kind of break everything down for you for the most part when it comes to investments. Okay. And so this is a normal Class A share breakpoint schedule, right? With your commission comp tied to the breakpoint. Okay. So what normally happens with people is they say, oh, well, I mean, hell, if I do a trade, I make 5%. Not quite, right? Not quite. That's the broker dealer's cut, meaning that the 5% is what gets paid to Primerica. We get paid our cut out of that 5%. Okay. Now, obviously, as you get closer to the next breakpoint level and then above, the higher the account size, the lower the sales charge, right? So the better the deal for the client overall, no matter what. Now, on the managed side, right, the 65 side, as long as someone has a $25,000 minimum, they can open a position inside of a managed fund, right? But you're only getting one. And then they also vary. So, but the sales charge is way lower because the the activity that's going on inside of that is generally more frequent, which would lead to a churn in a regular account, right? But not on that side. And so here's a practical example of what it looks like. So a 5K mutual fund trade, right? So 5K, so we're at the 5%, right? I'm a regional vice president. So as a regional vice president, I'm making 62% of that 5%. Rep through RVP, the rates are right here, right? And so you can always do this for yourself. So it's just the amount times the breakpoint times your cut. That's it, right? So a 5K trade is only $155 commission. Not bad, right? But that's not gonna like send a kid to college kind of thing. Now, obviously, if you're doing a much larger trade, do the math, right? But larger trade, lower break point or better break point for the client, lower commission for you. Okay. And so questions on that, I mean, that's pretty cut and dry, right? So the easiest thing to do in reality is take 5% times your commission and just know that whatever the size of the thing that you're doing on average for most people, because it'll likely be below 25,000 for most people, that's your multiple, right? That's your commission factor, however you want to think about it, right? So Suzanne and other VPs for us, right? It's like 0.3125. I don't know. I have to do the math really quick. But somewhere in there is about where you're going to be, right? So yeah, it should be like 0.31, something like that. But here's a fun one, right? And annuities, and we're going to talk about annuities next week. But think about and Robin asked me this question the other day, sort of like when is it appropriate for like a buffer annuity, right? We'll talk about that too, but here's sort of the way like, and this is the Bright House one. The other Shield slash buffer annuities pay the exact same way. There's an age component and a length of contract component, right? And so if you're doing a 6-year Shield for somebody who's like average age, it's a 5% commission, regardless of the size of the thing. So you could be doing a $10 million buffer, it's still a 5% commission. There's no breakpoints here. And there's no breakpoints because in a buffer slash shield annuity like this, there's no sales charge. So huge potential, right? So look, 250,000 buffer annuity here results at an RVP contract in an almost $8,000 commission. Now I have Gary's attention, right? That's a lot more than $155. A lot more. And so we'll talk about like some of the like appropriateness or suitability of this type of product next week. But think about it like this: if you were going to roll over somebody's old uh, like traditional IRA, let's say, right? If you were going to roll that over and roll it into something with a mutual fund, right? They're going to pay a sales charge up front, and they're going to pay a sales charge every time they invest, right? If it's something that's just kind of sitting and it's static and they're not planning to really do anything with it, but they're not happy with the performance, they're not happy maybe because it's over there getting charged fees, you could put it in something like this because there's zero fees to move it, there's zero fees to manage it, and it's getting the performance of the index that you attach it to, NASDAQ, S&P, MSCI, pick your poison, right? And it has downside protection 25%. So pretty solid. The other piece of it is no fees, no fees, no fees, right? And so that's why like this is a viable option for some people. Okay. Um, and it's a good thing for you because you're gonna get a hell of a payday out of it, right? So when it comes to like why we were focusing on this, it comes down to doing the full job, guys. Like you can't buy term and invest if you're not investment licensed, which you guys are. So let's buy term, invest, and get you paid is really what it comes down to, right? So this was that line, right? You're worse than the whole life guy. That's the one that got me off my butt and got me licensed, like big time. And like I said before, right, the life insurance will pay you like right now, it's up front, but the investment side is what's going to pay you like literally forever. Because for most people, they're not going to stop. And I mean, we've seen the market and how it compounds, right? I mean, look, hell, the last 5 years, the S&P is up what, like 120%? Doesn't suck, right? Doesn't suck. And I mean, this was a funny line too, right? It's all about assets under management, meaning dollars that you have invested, and then right, butts under management, and that's your codes. And that's really what you got to focus on. Like if you want to build a big business, right? Assets and under management. And that's really what it comes down to. And so you have all of the licenses, well, minus a 65, but you don't need a 65 to make some pretty decent scratch with an investment license right now. Roll over a mutual fund, throw it in a buffer annuity, right? What else? So, and really like what this comes down to is like what else do you need to get going, right? Because I told Gary this last week, right? Massive recruiting is the answer. You want to sell more home and auto, recruit 100 people. It doesn't matter what it doesn't matter like what angle you want to take the business in, the more raw pipeline material you start with, the higher your odds are of converting something, right? And so massive recruiting is always the answer. It's right here. It's at the front. It's at the tip of the spear. And so like that's like I told you tonight was going to be quick, and I wasn't kidding. So that's like the down and dirty on comp right now. One thing I will tell you is right now, unless you like unless you opted to pay your renewals up front out of pocket, I think you had to declare that before like October 10th or something. Right now, all of your renewals and everything are getting paid from your earns, right? And so if you haven't seen a securities daily blast lately, that's why. And so depending on how many states you have in terms of your non-res licenses, it's going to take a little bit. Unless you go do like one big trade. You go do one big trade and then all of a sudden, boop, and you're done. And so, um, because like even me, right? Like earlier this month, I was like, well, that's weird. It's like the 10th and I haven't, or the 12th and I haven't seen the securities thing. And I was like, oh yeah, renewals. And so like that's one way to do it. Or if you want, you can pay it up front out of pocket and then you don't have to deal with it. Last year I just paid it up front because I didn't like the way it was like, I don't know. But this year I forgot. So whatever. Questions, guys? Sam, I don't think you're in the right place. Didn't even realize you were here. But I don't want to kick you out because then you'll be kicked out of the Sunday skills forever. It's just gonna be really boring and not helpful for you. Suzanne, you haven't been here in a minute. I know you were teaching, like guest teaching some of the other stuff before. Questions, anything that you've had? Like last week, we just did Q&A, pure Q&A. Anything you need help with or has been on your mind or anything?
Not really. But since we're in this class, I gotta tell you this funny text that I got. So I've been working with sending text messages to people that are still paying their website fee, right?
Mhm.
And they're no longer here, right? And I had this person that it says he's going to go take his test in December. And I was like, well, if you're not using it right now, you might as well just turn it off, right? Because yeah. He's been here since August, so his bonus is gonna fall off, and he knows that, but whatever.
Yeah.
But he sent me this deal, and I was like, "Do you want to let's turn that into an investment account so you can start making some money?" And he's like, "No, not that. I don't need one because I understand Bible prophecy and the times we live in." And just goes on to say that we only have um, 7 years left before the Lord returns to the earth to overturn all human governments of the world and establishes his kingdom on the earth. I don't believe we even have 20 years left before this age of human government wraps up. I can elaborate more if you want, but life insurance stuff is important. So I'm cool with that, but I know for a fact I have no need for any retirement plans. And so I screenshot that and sent it to Andy and Brittany and was just like, I don't even really know what to say, but I wanted to say, like, okay, I love that you see the value in life insurance. But wouldn't you rather take the risk that you have put money toward this retirement and you're not going to be here to use it than to not put anything in and you're going to be here and you don't have it?
I would use his convictions against him. Hey, Suzanne, listen, I totally understand that you believe that the second coming is going to happen and that you won't need this. But what would you say to someone that said that they didn't believe in Jesus?
Yeah, I mean, yeah. I mean, I don't know what I would say, but yeah. I
So,
mean,
but like the normal sort of retort with that, right? And I've heard it from pastors a lot. Like, I mean, not lately, but sort of for a long time.
you'd rather
Wouldn't
gamble that he is real and he's coming back than to say he's not and he comes, and then what are you going to do? Right? Right.
well, I mean, sort of, right? It's sort of like going to heaven, right?
Yeah.
I mean, wouldn't you rather just bet on heaven being real? That way you get there and you're in
Yes.
versus saying that it's not and you get there and you wish they'd let you in.
Yeah. For real.
People have been thinking that Jesus was returning within the next 7 years for 2,000 years.
Yeah.
They haven't been right yet. It could be, but they haven't been right yet. So what's it going to hurt?
Right.
Just in case.
Yeah.
Just in case. What do the odds say?
Case. Exactly. That's what I thought, but I just didn't respond yet. I was like, let
Yeah,
that sit.
I would not do that over a text message. There's no way. Not a chance. Not a chance. But yeah, I'm not dragging this one tonight, guys, right? If there's no questions, I'm done. So like whatever you got. Gary, what's up, man?
I just got one quick question because I'm going through the boot camp right now from Omar.
Mhm.
Income riders, how often do you see that? How common are they for you?
In what product, right? You're not going to
In
ever, it doesn't exist in a mutual fund. It doesn't exist in an investment.
Annuity.
You may see it in a certain type of annuity product,
annuity?
but but not often, right? And I would honestly caution you on the products that have all of those extra riders in the annuity space, because now what should turn into a very low cost product for a client actually becomes very expensive via fees, especially in the variable space, right?
Okay.
Because you can sort of like Cadillac trick out a variable annuity product. This is not a buffer annuity, right? Like, but other like actual like ones that your accumulation phase type working stuff through. And you can have all of these little like gee whiz things, but you end up paying 6, 7% in fees. Yeah,
Good
exactly.
to hear. Because it going through it, it was kind of confusing how it all worked, that portion of it. So just curious.
I forget what the writer name is called, but there's one, I think Lincoln has one now. Um, it's basically like a return um of like almost like a return of principal, but basically like if you start annuitizing, right, and you start receiving payments, and as long as the account doesn't go to zero, like you could have $1 left in the account, and if the primary dies, right, the account goes all the way back up to where it was when you started annuitizing. But what do you pay for something like that? A hefty fee. right? A hefty performance fee. Not a performance fee, but a hefty like actual like fee. Because I called my buddy at Bright House and I was like, hey, I'm hearing some weird stuff about this, like one of these other products. And he goes, yeah, man, they're out there, but you got to get a hold of the fee schedule on those things. He's like, for most people, like save some very, very like weird circumstances where you kind of have a diagnosis that you know is coming and whatever, and then you get in and then you annuitize immediately and you know you're going to draw it down just to like let it come back up. He's like, maybe. He's like, but on an average client, they're going to get wrecked and they're actually going to end up negative because in most situations, the growth balance will get totally eroded by the fee schedule. And I was like, ooh, it's not good. I like zero. I like zero. Right. And that's why, and we'll talk about it next week on the on like the buffer and the shield annuity stuff. Um, but yeah, like I would not in a lot of those situations, not not worth it. Not worth it. But I'm not saying it's never, right? Because they exist for a reason. Somebody saw value somewhere, somebody was willing to pay for it. But I would say for the most part, you got to be careful on those because you can start just like tacking stuff on. I mean, just look at like the price difference on a life policy with waiver premium, right? Now do that a few more times. At the end of the day, the main thing you wanted was the life insurance. The main thing the client wanted was the annuity or the whatever, right? But then you start tacking all these things on, and now it's like you kind of like start depleting value. So if you have a specific example that you want to look at and you have it, we can sort of like play with it next week for sure and look through it.
Okay. Again, I was just going through that and I'm trying to understand how Omar was trying to explain it, and it didn't quite make as much sense, and now it makes even less sense with the way you were explaining the fees and stuff to
So
it. So,
just think about time anytime you a rider, right? It's an attachment. It costs more. Always. Rob, what's up?
We'll go over how you recommend funds using the portfolio, recommendation sheet,
Give me like I need a little more than that.
like
what do you
Franklin Templeton or, whatever. Like I was just going on like where you go like training guides and it gives you like the portfolio
yeah, the model portfolios.
suggestions, percentages per, aggressive and stuff like that.
Well, the reason they're model portfolios is the percentages are pre-done,
Mhm.
right? So you don't tweak them. You don't mess with them.
You just put the same percentages in when
Right,
there's
because
like a lump sum.
they're because the funds inside of those plus the percentages combined with those are what actually model them into the categories that they're built in, right? The income, conservative, growth, moderate, aggressive, like that whole like level is based on the way you're asking the client the questions in like the suitability sections, right? And so you're also going to drive that based on their age, their time to retirement, right? Like if somebody's 4 years to retirement, you should not be putting them into an aggressive portfolio because even though they may want the growth, they don't have time to recover. Now, if they, at the end of the day, your job is to provide advice until you're 65. You're not an advisor, technically, right? But your job is to provide advice. And so if the client's like, look, I get it. I know I don't got time, but that's why I'm willing to gamble. Okay, that's a different story, right? But like at that point, it's a client directed thing. You're not on the hook for that, right? And that's where, like, if it ever comes back to where you make a recommendation, the client wants to go a different direction, you might get a call from home office and be like, "That's a really weird sort of like trade recommendation, XYZ. Can you explain?" I said, "Yeah, I gave him my advice. He said no, he wanted to do this." I said, "Okay." I had a client moved her. It's like she quit her job, right? She quit teaching. She took her entire retirement account and we put it into a buffer annuity because she was not going to do anything with it. She kept about 60 grand in cash that she was going to put into a money market account. So there was no liquidity issues, right? And then about 8 months later, she goes, "I'm getting a divorce. I want to take a bunch of money out of that." And I said, "Whoa, you don't want to do that. There's a 7% penalty for early withdrawal. and you're going to pay a 10% penalty early to the IRS because you're not 59 and a half. And oh, by the way, you're going to have to pay taxes. She goes, yeah, I know. I don't care. I mean, at the end of the day, I can't, like, it's their money, right? Like, all I can say is, like, okay, well, look, I appreciate that, but here's what that's actually going to cost you. 7 plus 10 is 17%, plus the amount that she took moved her into an entirely new tax bracket. We're talking a large sum of cash within the same tax year. I said, can't you wait and do some of that now and then do some of that after January 1st? She goes, nope. I said, listen, at the end of the day, it's your money. I'll do whatever you want. But you used to be a teacher. You've never made more than $60,000 in your entire life in a single year. How can you possibly need, over the course of two separate withdrawals in 6 months, equivalent to like $170,000 plus the 60 that you kept? How? How? Look, at some point, right? It's not your circus and it's not your monkeys. I said, look, that is 100% a
Yeah.
call I had to field from home office. And they said, hey, here, like, can you explain? I said, absolutely. Absolutely. They called her too. And she said, yep, I told them exactly what you told me. And that I did it against all of your advice. I said, I appreciate you. I, I don't know. Like, at some point you just can't, right? Like, but the recommendation stuff, it's purely based off of time horizon, their comfort level, right? Because you might meet somebody who's like 22 and does not care and is just straight up conservative. I have one. Her performance has been like 6%, but she's happy as a clam. I said, you could have had like 26% over the last year. She's like, mm. I'd have been really sad if it lost money. I was like, okay. Listen, you like everybody, but that's why everybody's different. That's why you ask the questions, right? So it's literally based off of the client, their timeline, and what their comfort level is. Not everybody's willing to just go put it on black. Some people are, right? And some people should be based on the timeline that they have. But that's your job, right? Your job's to explain. Your job's to explain. And maybe they get a little more comfortable after the first 6 months or a year, right? Say, hey, we've done pretty well, right? 4% was great. It was a bull market, right? We left a lot on the table. And going forward, what would you be willing to do in terms of like maybe diversifying a little more, right? Let's leave 50% of your portfolio here on this conservative side. Let's add a couple of things that might get you a little more aggressive, maybe increase your returns. Ease them into it. Don't convert the whole, like, don't like flip the whole thing on them because they're not like, that's gonna be like an emotional event for them. We see it all the time, right? Like,
How do you switch it? You have to sell it,
just
like
purchase,
if they do want to switch from like
just move money into the
just
fund.
move forward in that direction.
So depending on where they're at, right? Like your best bet would be like leave the portfolio the way it is and then add a couple of new funds that would get them into that more aggressive space because then they've still got the basis of their portfolio is where it was. So it'll still stay relatively stable for them. But then you add a couple of new funds, right? That will be a little more on the aggressive side and it'll start like balancing the portfolio sort of itself. That's what I would do.
Just lessen the percentages towards the other ones and add some new ones.
Just depends what they've got going on. Yeah. I mean, if they've only got like a fixed amount to invest, right? Like turn off the packs for the conservative stuff, let the like the balance and the principles sort of sit there, and then start the packs into the new, more aggressive things. I mean, there's like 99 ways to do it. Like it just depends on what you want to do. But that's probably the simplest, especially if they don't have a lot of extra cash to like keep those alive and add, right? But that's why I said like a year later, we should have some extra cash somewhere in theory, right? Somebody's gotten a raise, changed position, cost of living adjustment, depending on what kind of client you're talking to, and there's all sorts of stuff going on. What else, guys? Good? Yes. Sweet. All right. That's it
I
for
know
tonight.
Gary answered this question, but can I ask one question?
Mhm.
The whole, like, I know you're in Florida. So I'm meeting with a client tomorrow night that the only thing she's investing in is the Florida retirement system, which
Mhm.
we're not allowed to touch. Like Gary kind of explained in our chat. So she does want to open a Roth, but she